After the fire, we wound up moved out of the district for Union Gap grade school. So I had to commute to school by riding with a coach. So I had to go out for basketball and baseball, which I don't normally do. But I was one of the bench warmers through that time. And when I got done with Union Gap, I went to Eisenhower High School with my sister. My sister was a senior when I was a sophomore. And still had to ride the bus to school because the house that we rented was too far away from the school to be able to walk. And I went off to high school. Now, in Union Gap, my graduating class is a grand total of 65 people. But at Eisenhower High School, the sophomore class was over 400 people. So it's much bigger, much more intimidating to a shy person. But I got to school and I went to the line for sophomores with starting an initial of R through T. Of course, the S line's in the middle of that. So I went to the line and I picked up the classes that I had for the year. And they were exactly what I expected: English, geometry, Spanish, PE, and library. And I went to those classes, but when I got to my geometry class, I found it was not a college prep class, and which I needed. And I also found that my English class was not a college prep class. So I went to the counselor's office, realized not only was I going to have to study hard to try and get good grades, but I was going to have to do something to try and get into the right classes. So I went to the counselor's office, and I set up an appointment. Went in. When I got there for the appointment, I was greeted with a friendly, "Hello, Bob. What can I do for you?" And I told him, I said, well, I plan to go to college, so I need college prep classes on all my subjects. And he said, well, not all subjects have college prep classes because Spanish and PE classes, for example, don't have college prep. They don't break them down into college prep and regular. So okay, but for the ones that do have college prep, I need to be in the college prep. For example, geometry and English. The counselor responded, "It's not that easy, Bob. You have to earn college prep. So I will evaluate your grades at the semester, and if you get good enough grades, we'll move you up." Well, I went back to my classes, rather frustrated, but I checked with my geometry teacher, and he said that I was falling behind the longer I waited to transfer. So I was really kind of frustrated. I went home and I got my 9th grade report card out and took it with me and signed up for another visit with the counselor. And I took my report card in and handed it to him and said, "See, I do qualify for college prep geometry because I got a B+ in algebra." And he said, "Yeah, but it doesn't say it was college prep algebra." To which I responded, "It's the only algebra class at Union Gap." And he said, "That's the problem with small schools. They are not big enough to separate the classes like they need to." So he said, like I said, I will evaluate your performance at the semester and move you up to the highest class you are qualified for. Well, I knew this wasn't going to be good because I'm falling further and further behind. So I left his office and I was real frustrated. I was thinking about, he doesn't seem to care. And I was all frustrated and I prayed and said, "Lord, help me, I don't know what to do." And then I remembered the story that Jesus told about the unjust judge and how the widow kept coming to the man and to the judge, and the judge finally decided, "I will give this widow what she deserves, lest she wear me down with her constant coming." And so he gave her justice. And I said, that's what I will do with the counselor. So I went back to the counselor's office and I signed up for another appointment. And I had an appointment every day for a week. And at the end of the week he said, "Bob, you've got to stop coming to my office. I will move you up at the end of the semester." And I said, "Well, I've talked to the geometry teacher, Mr. Jennings, and he says that I'm already a week behind. If I wait till the semester, there's no way I will ever be able to catch up. So he said, well, you know, if you get a B, I will move you up. And I said, I can't get a B in regular English. I know I can't get a B because I had a B in 9th grade, and the school made the teacher change it to a C+. In my 9th grade English teacher, she told me, she said she wanted to give me I earned an A, but she was going to give me a B+ because I was in regular English. But the school made her change it to a C+. So I said, I can't get a B. He said, if you earn a B, I'll make sure you get it. He said, okay, but I keep track of my grades, so I'll know what I get. He said, good, then we have a deal. So he gave me the transfer slip for geometry, and I had to wait till the semester to transfer in English. And when I, of course, got to geometry, the only seat there that was available was the one right in front of the teacher's desk. But that's okay with me because in the front there are fewer distractions. So I sat down and I started doing geometry. And when I walked into my English class, the teacher said, "Good morning, Bob," and winked at me. And I kind of wondered, why is she winking at me? And then I realized, oh, and maybe that means that the counselor had talked to her and arranged for me to get a B if I earn it, to get whatever grade I earn. So I was kind of at ease then, and I started working on it. And when I was in Mr. Jennings' class one day, I saw a chess set on top of his desk. And I said, "Mr. Jennings, why do you have a chess set on top of your desk?" And he said, "Because I'm going to play with chess with a student during lunch." And so I asked, "Can I come?" And he said, "Only if you promise not to talk during the game." I said I would never do that. So he said, "Okay, then you can come." So I spent that lunch hour playing chess with Mr. Jennings and the other kids that were there and watching chess games. And then when I went back to lunch, my two friends, a day later or so, we got to talking about it, and I said, "We should have a chess club." And Ron said, "Yeah, we should have a chess club." I said, "How will we do a chess club?" And he says, "I got no idea." None of us had any idea how we would start a chess club. But I thought to myself, I'll bet Mr. Jennings knows. So the next time I went to geometry class, I asked Mr. Jennings if he knew how we could start a chess club. And he said, "Well, there's two things you need. You need a statement of the purpose of your club, and you also need a staff sponsor." I said, "Would you be the sponsor?" He said, "No, I don't have time for that. But Mr. Payne, he's the physics teacher, he sponsored once before, maybe he might do it." So I went to him. He was up on second floor on another wing, and so I went to him and I asked him between classes if he would be interested in sponsoring a chess club if I started one. And he said, "Well, yeah, but you've got to have enough students. I'm not going to stay after school so that two kids can play chess. You got to have more students than that." I said, "Okay, well, we'll get more students." And then he said, I have the old chess sets. I have 10 old chess sets and the old constitution for the previous chess club. You could use those if you want to." So I said, "Great." So he took me back into his room, into a little walk-in closet, and there were the chess sets all laid out neatly, waiting to be used. And he handed me the document. And then he said, "By the way, don't forget you can advertise over the PA and in the school newspaper for your club." I thought that would be good. So then I went back at lunch. I was talking with Ron and Rick about starting the chess club. We started trying to figure out when kids could come, and we found out from Mr. Payne when he could be there. And during one of those lunches, Ron and Rick got into an argument. They were arguing about dancing. Ron said dancing is wrong, and Rick said no, only lewd dancing is wrong. And so they were arguing about the rightness or wrongness of dancing. And Rick turned to me and he said, "Bob, what do you believe?" And I knew what my church believed. pretty much what Rick was saying. I mean, what Ron was saying. And I knew what my parents believed more closely to what Rick was saying. But I didn't really know what I believed. So I told him, I said, well, I see the lunch line's down. I'm going to go get my lunch. And I will tell you when I get back. But I made sure I didn't come back until they had long since forgotten that question. But I never forgot that question. That question haunted me. What do I believe? And I decided I needed to know what I believe. And as I thought about it, I realized the Bible is the most fundamental part of any church, any denomination. So I decided I would start with the Bible. And I kind of set aside, I didn't reject, I just kind of set aside all I had been taught and proceeded to study and read the Bible. Now I started to read it and I was having trouble making progress. Finally I got a little pocket size white New Testament that I could put in my pocket, and I carried it with me everywhere I went. I just took it with me, and if I was waiting for class to start, or waiting for the bus, or it was just boring, I could pull out that pocket New Testament and I could read. And I set the goal that I would read 2 chapters. If I hadn't finished 2 chapters by the end of the day, that I would finish the 2 chapters before I went to bed. Now most of the time I finished a lot more than 2 chapters, but I started reading the Bible, and I started going through all the quote-unquote inconsistencies that people say are in the Bible. And for example, one day I scared my mother to death. I said to her, I said, Mom, do you realize that the genealogy in Matthew and the genealogy in Luke are different? And she said, yes, one's of Joseph and the other one's of Mary. I said, that's not the way it reads in my Bible. Well, then she said, well, that has to be the way it is, because otherwise the Bible would be contradicting itself. And I said, so? And she said, well, if the Bible contradicts itself, then it's not the Word of God. And the second time I said so, she just walked away. Knowing my mother as I do, I have a feeling she started praying earnestly for me. I researched that genealogy problem and found that in the book of Luke, where it says son of, that was actually added by the translators for clarity. But since in that same passage, Luke says that Joseph was not the real father of Jesus, it would not make sense for him to give the genealogy of Joseph. So it probably should have been translated, or they should have added descended of for clarity instead of son of. And then very clearly that passage is the genealogy of Mary. So I went through the Bible like that, pretty much all the way through it. By the time I got to done, I was fully convinced that the Bible is the Word of God. And I started back through reading it to find out what it says and obey it. Meanwhile, my folks bought a piece of property, a lot, up on the south of Tanham Ridge, overlooking Yakima Valley. And that piece of property was undeveloped. It did have sewage available, but it was a new development and just an empty lot. And so when my folks bought it, we had to build the house ourselves because we couldn't afford to buy it. My dad laid out the plans. My Uncle Earl, who was an engineer, drew up the blueprints. Rosemary and I, matter of fact, the whole family, sat down and looked over the plans. And when I looked at the plans, I pointed out to my folks that the windows weren't big enough in the bedrooms, because if there was a fire, they couldn't pull a person out through those windows. And I also pointed out that the fireplace and kitchen were in between the bedrooms and the exits. So again, if there was a fire, a person probably couldn't get out. And my dad told my mom later that my concerns were valid and they would have to buy bigger windows. So they bought, even though they were more expensive, they bought bigger windows and put them in the bedrooms. The layout looked like, on paper, like the kitchen sink was in the middle of the living room, because the front part was big windows, almost went from ceiling to floor, looking out of the view. And then there was the dining room, the living room, and the entryway and between those was the just a half wall, and there were 6 wood pillars that held up the ceiling, and that allowed anybody in the kitchen to be able to talk to anybody in the dining room, living room, or entryway. When my grandmother, though, when she saw the diagrams or the drawings, she said, well, Ralph's done it now. He put a kitchen sink in the middle of the living room. So it was a big topic of discussion around the family. But we went ahead and built it. We were moving along. Now the ground is sloped, so in the back of it there's a 9-foot. The concrete wall needs to be 9 feet. In the front it's 9 feet, but there's only 3 feet that's in the ground because the ground was sloping. So when we dug it down, we had to level the bottom of the foundation so that it wouldn't slide. Don't want the house to slide down the hillside. We did that. We rented a backhoe, dug it out. We're working weekends, every weekend, Friday nights and Saturdays, and that we still weren't making enough progress. So my dad, well, we did manage to get the concrete poured first. We poured the concrete on a Saturday. We got to the point where we were ready. We ordered the concrete and just hoped it wouldn't rain that weekend. And of course, when we poured the concrete, you have to pour all the concrete. You have to pour the next load of concrete before the first load dries, etc., etc. So my father was pouring the concrete. Me and my sister were taking shovels and getting all the bubbles out of the concrete. And my mother was preparing, meanwhile my mother was preparing the next section for the next load. And trucks just came continuously. When one truck was done, another truck was right there to just keep pouring the concrete. So by the end of the day, we had gotten all the concrete poured, and we'd worked with trowels, worked the porches and the utility room floor. Now the utility room floor was the hardest. Not only was it had to be a smooth finish, but it also had to slope to the middle of the floor so that you could have all the water, if the washing machine overflowed or something, the water would flow out the drain that was in the middle of the floor. And just about the time we got done, clouds rolled into Yakima Valley and it started sprinkling. So we grabbed rolls of plastic and put it over all the concrete, and we had it all secured so that it wouldn't blow away. We went home tired and wet. We got there, but fortunately the next day was Sunday. Now my father never would work on Sunday. He would never work on Sunday because he said that's the Lord's day. And anytime I work, he would say, on Sunday, God sees to it that all the work I do has to be redone. So I might as well just rest on Sunday and do it one time. So my father would never work on Sunday. But we got it all done and it was good. We didn't have to redo anything. And we got to rest on Sunday, and then the next week we went back at it. But we weren't making enough progress to get it done for the winter. So my father hired 2 farmers, Mr. Hoisington and Mr. Wong. Mr. Hoisington was a orchard owner, and Mr. Wong was a vegetable farmer. But they didn't have anything they needed to do, and they wanted to earn some extra money, so they came and worked for my dad. And on Saturday, he would give them the work that they needed to do Tuesday through Friday the next week. And on Saturdays, Fridays and Saturdays, he also had me working, and my mom and my sister. Now my dad told me when it came to the wiring that he wanted me to do it, and he said he would show me how. So he started out, he showed me where everything went and exactly how to run the wires. And then just with each time as we did another room, he gave me less instruction until by the end of the working, by the end of the wiring, he would just mark on the studs where the outlets were supposed to go, and I would do the rest. So we progressed with that. Now it came time for spring retreat that all the churches get together where I would see Linda, but the family decided to work through the retreat, through the spring, and so I didn't get to go. And also when it came to the next Thanksgiving, we still were working on the house, and so we decided to work on Friday and Saturday, but Thursday we'd celebrate Thanksgiving, and of course we don't work on Sunday. We finally got the house where it was somewhat closed in right around Christmas time, and we had about half the roof done. We had the subflooring and the walls, but Yakima got one of the worst snowstorms ever in their history on that day, and there was 13.6 inches of snow that fell all in one night, kind of like some of the snowstorms we've been getting up in the Cascades lately. So anyway, 14 inches, we had to get it out of there, and the next day the snow was melting so fast that the streets, the fields were all flooded, even though the rivers and the creeks were not full. It wasn't overflowing, it was actually just the snow melting and flowing into the creeks. I had to go up there. We got the day off for school, but I had to go up to the house and shovel all the snow off the subflooring so that it wouldn't warp the subflooring. Meanwhile, I'm also trying to get the chess club going at school. Matter of fact, one night I was studying my Spanish, which I was not doing well at. I was not passing Spanish. I was studying my Spanish, and Dad came home from work, and he said, "Come on, Bob, let's go out to the house." And I said, "I can't. I've got to study Spanish." He said, "You have 2 hours from the time you get home to the time I get home. You need to work on your Spanish during that 2 hours, not wait until I get home and then tell me you have homework to do." And I said, "I have been working on it since I got home, and I'm failing the class. I need to study." He said, "Okay, well, grab your homework. Come out to it's not safe for me to work out there by myself. So you grab the homework and your homework, take it out there." And I flipped over a pail, sat on a pail, and set up a board so that I could sit there and study at a desk. And whenever he needed anything upstairs, he would holler out. He was doing plumbing, and he would holler to me what he needed, and I would take it and pass it down to him, and then go back to my studies. And when I finally got done with my studies, then I was able to help him all the time, be there, and he would measure the pipes and I'd pass them up to me, and I'd cut them and hand them back down to him. So we got that done. We got to the point where we were getting close to the point where we could move in. About that same time, we had the chess club started. So it was going. We had our first meeting. Now, I was too shy to get in front of that many kids, so I told Ron, my friend, my senior friend, that he would have to be the one leading the meeting. And he said, "Okay, just tell me what to do." So I did. We went through the meeting and what needed to happen. And that Thursday, I had to get permission from my dad to ride my bike to school so that I could stay late, because the bus leaves right after school's out. So I rode my bike that morning. It was 10 miles, about the same as what I did on my paper route, so no big deal. So I rode my bike to school. Of course, there wasn't all that many bikes in the bike stands, because high school kids don't want to be seen riding a bike to school. But since I needed to do that in order to be at the chess club, I went ahead and did it. So then I got there, and that Thursday night I got permission from Dad to be late getting home. Matter of fact, he decided we just wouldn't go to work on the house on Thursdays anymore. So I went to the chess club, and we got there, and I coached Ron and said, "It's time we should call the meeting to order." So he did. He got up there and he called the meeting to order, and he said, "We need to organize the club, so we need officers." And he said, "The first person I think we should vote for is the president." And everyone went, "Okay." And so he said, "There's one person here in this group that is more responsible for this meeting and for this club than anybody else. Without him, we wouldn't have the club happening. and that is Bob Shreve. So I nominate him as president. And then he asked if anybody else had anybody else to nominate, and nobody did. So he said, I now would like to propose that we elect Bob Shreve as president unanimously, and they did. They said yay, and I was now president, and so he turned to me and said, okay, Bob, as president, come up and lead the rest of the meeting. I felt kind of betrayed because the idea was for me not to have to get up in front of the group. But I wanted the club to thrive. I wanted the chess club to survive, so I went ahead and got up there, even though I was in front of about 12, 15 people, and that was an awful lot of people for me. But I got up there and I ran the meeting, elected the rest of the officers, and then of course all the kids, they came to play chess, so we got out the chess sets and we played chess. And that went on for a few weeks, and then started noticing people, some of the students started saying, we should have a tournament so we know who's the better player. So we decided, okay, let's have a tournament. Bob Brennan, one of the guys in the chess club, offered to help me organize a tournament. We decided on a double elimination tournament, but when we got it going, we had the people had to play each week their opponent, but when people weren't there, didn't show up, that made everything confused. And then some new people came in that wanted to be in the tournament, but there was no way to insert them into the tournament. So Bob Brennan suggested that we should switch to a point system where when somebody new comes in to get 1,000 points, they can challenge anybody who has more points than you, and the challenger has to accept the challenged has to accept the challenge or forfeit the points. So that's what we did. Now the kids who had already been in the tournament, they wanted to get points for the games that they played, so we calculated that. We had the chess club going pretty good. So that's how we got started, and that's how I got where I could stand up in front of about 15 or 20 people.